So that was the beginning of the episode of Inside the Podcaster Studio. That was a lot of fun about 3 months ago. Again, if you're just joining us, we're playing a couple clips while I cleaned up my mess of messing up our previous replay of the Podlywed game. But I am proud to announce that the clips and the replays are over. Oh, jeez. We are back to live content in our number 13 of 24. We have reached the halfway point, or we're just about to reach the halfway point, and we're going strong. So welcome to the podcast, my good friend. Oh, that's not fair. There we go. Fergus Keating. Good morning, my friend. It's bright and early, a few minutes before 7 where you are, is it not?
It is, and my voice is a little bit deeper than it should be at this time of the morning.
You only sound like this at 6:55 in the morning and when you're drunk. Which those aaren't mutually exclusive.
There's a blurry line between both of those times.
Exactly, so, but Fergus is multifaceted dude. He's the host of and founder of Guns and Yellow Ribbons.
Co-founder,
He is the monitor, the hall monitor of multiple Facebook groups, including the Arsenal Fans Forum, where he does a wonderful job allowing me to sell my wares there. And just a tremendous guy, an Irishman living in England, as opposed
to give him something,
as opposed to Craig Scott, who's an Englishman living in Ireland. But we're going to kick off real quick before we go into what I think is going to be a really interesting hour, with a prize draw that I forgot to do before we finished off the last podcast. I was so enthralled with the last live hour that we did, which was called the Way Too Personal Game, starring Eoin, Mikey Herz, and Miami John, who now lives in Chicago. That's his full name. But learned a lot about each other, and my son learned a lot about me unintentionally. But I forgot to give away this great 89 T-shirt from Fees Tees. Let me get you a close-up. If you haven't seen this T-shirt yet, it's an 89 T-shirt with the famous Brian Moore call making the 89. Arsenal comes streaming forward with what surely will be the last attack. You know the rest from Brian Moore. One of the greatest moments of my footballing life that night. So we're going to give that away now. Now, Fergus, when did you wake up and how long have you been sleeping? Not a question I would normally care about the answer to, but in this environment, I am.
Well, after 2 years of not meeting my boss, who's a good friend of mine, I met with him yesterday, and we were spending time in Hackney Wick and meeting some clients, and then across the Olympic Park and so on. So it was a late-ish one last night, hence the deep voice. And when did I wake up? 6:30, 20 past 6.
Well, the Hackney Wick near the Hackney Marshes.
Yeah, that sort of way. The other side of the Olympic Park. So it's all uber cool. I'm far too old for that area. And it clearly was, it did look that way, craft beer and the like. So
yeah, when you're our age and you know when you don't fit into a situation anymore. And
yeah, I had red shorts on. So and a beard. So I'm all right.
There you go. So this is where we are as far as the fundraiser is concerned. Just a fantastic lead into the fundraiser, and the first 12 hours, $4,427 of a $5,000 goal. Hopefully, as more people wake up and the content is now live again, and we have some great guests still coming up this morning, we'll be able to smash that $5,000 goal. But just a great showing from Gooners all over the world. And we're going to pick a prize now, and we'll pick one at the end of the hour as well. So here's what we're going to do. We have the 89 T-shirt, the first of two that we're going to be giving away on this podcast.
Can I ask a question about that T-shirt?
Absolutely.
You know when the T-shirts came out first and you shared them on the WhatsApp group, and I sent you a message, hey, Mike, can you get me one? That's not my T-shirt, is it?
Do you think that you would fit in this?
Is it an XL?
This is a large. I have a few different sizes. See, the story behind these T-shirts and the reason that I have them. First, the maker of these T-shirts is Stephen Feely, on Twitter as Nola Gooner, great expat living in New Orleans. And he makes great t-shirts. He has a Rocky Rocastle t-shirts. He has an anti-Spurs t-shirt. Go to feestees.me. It's not .com, and check out his stuff. He sent me with about 6 of these shirts when I went over to London in March of 2019. In that
when you avoided
trip.
Me, that date you avoided me.
It was the day I found out what pub you went to, and I went to the opposite one.
Yeah. I remember that one very well.
He brought me 6 shirts to distribute to Amy Lawrence, Lee Dixon, Alan Smith, Kevin Campbell,
and me.
Harry Groves, and I forget who the other one was for. Maybe you. I'm sure it was you. And
in that lineup, definitely it's got to be me.
Yes, I was saving the best for last. In the process of almost getting to deliver the shirts for 3 of them to Amy, the day before I had lunch plans with Amy, I had to rush home and flee back to my own country due to COVID, and the trip was cut short and everything sucked. But so I had these, and I said, you know what? Instead of sending them back or mailing them to them, can I give them away for Gooners versus Cancer? And of course, Stephen was a gentleman on that. So yeah, we'll find out the size of the person that wins. I'm not going to force the person that wins to accept a large if it doesn't fit them, and we'll take care of you. So the winner, we will draw right now using our randomizer.
Has it randomized? Because the ones I saw last night on the train on the way home, it was the same person twice.
It was the same person twice, and then the next 2 prizes were the same person twice. I've tested it out. It is completely random, but it is weighted to, just like lottery tickets. If you buy, 5 times as many lottery tickets as someone else, you have 5 times greater chance of winning. So it was a random coincidence that the same person won twice. What we have done since you've been sleeping is we have established a rule that the most times you can win is 3 times. But if your name comes up now, as opposed to the last 4 or 5 hours of the pod when we have some of the big ticket prizes on, we're gonna pick somebody else so that your third prize is, you still preserve your third chance for either an Arsenal jersey, a legend signed jersey, or the grand prize, which is a team signed jersey. So the rules have gotten very complicated, but we established them when there was a lawyer on the podcast with us. So that I'm using as my excuse. So let's go to the drawing here. We have the highest level of technology on this podcast. The winner of the first of 2 89 shirts is Pietro LaMonica. Congratulations, Pietro. Now, when it says weight here, that's the number of tickets. $25 donation gets you 7 tickets. $500 donation gets you 400 tickets. $100 donation gets you 50. The more you donate, the more you get. But I'm emphasizing this right now because this goes to show that you do not need to have a significant donation in order to have a chance of winning. And I shouldn't have said significant. Every donation is significant, but you're not only going to win if you essentially buy the raffle. Although we appreciate the large donations, any donation you can win. And Pietro LaMonica, congratulations. I will be in touch with you to talk about getting you the right size shirt and getting that out to you. So congratulations, Pietro.
Well done, mate.
Yeah. So the reason that you're on, Fergus, besides being my friend, I have a couple of things I want to tell you. First of all, is this preferable to be chatting with me in an exhausted state, or a speed walking, upside down headed troll named Andy Nunn? I mean, what's the better experience at 7 a.m. in the morning?
At 7 a.m. in the morning, normally we're getting a voice note of Janet from Thanet.
That's what I'm saying. Like, isn't this a pleasanter thing for you to be doing?
It is far, far, far more pleasant, and all the wind noise and the gate noises and the dogs barking and crapping and stuff. Yeah, it's far, far more enjoyable talking to you, Mike.
Well, I appreciate that, and we're gonna bring in another friend of ours to kind of observe and serve as the focus is on you, but we're gonna bring in Big Stevie because now he's home. He's in his studio.
He's not Big Steve anymore. He's half Steve.
I'm still big. I'm still big enough.
You're gonna have to change that. I mean, Twitter is gonna ban you if you keep that name because you're lying at this point.
How much have you lost now, Steve?
102 pounds as of yesterday.
Wow, Jesus! Well done, mate. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well done.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Luke. I think we're gonna see a new a new surge in these donations as the UK wakes up and Luke, I don't know if you're in the UK or not. Actually, I think you are. But in any case, good to have you back with us, Steve. Now, Fergus, I'm going to continue, doing the friendship equivalent of sucking you off. You've just polished off an incredible new series on guns and yellow ribbons called Arsenal History. And, I will readily admit, between recent travel to and from Florida and my crazy work schedule and planning this out, I have barely had enough time to focus on the things that are right in front of me, much less watch other podcasts as frequently as I'd like. So I'm woefully behind, but I mean it. I'm going to binge watch these 8 episodes because it's really incredible from what little I have seen, how complete and fascinating the history of the club is. And do you know you have 8 episodes in this series?
Yep.
Do you know how long the total of those episodes are?
Probably about 10 hours.
9 hours, 59 minutes, and 54 seconds.
So I'm 6 seconds out.
You could have just stretched out the final episode for like goddamn 6 more seconds and made it a 10-hour masterpiece, the box set. But yeah, it was, I don't know what made me do that, but I wanted to kind of talk about how long it was. And then I was like, wow, that's almost exactly 10 hours.
But you know what the original plan was, Mike? They were meant to be half hour episodes. But once you get talking, Trevor, old man Trev, reached out to Mark Andrews and Andy Kelly from they're historians who have written lots of books about Arsenal, and they run the ArsenalHistory.com website. And he said, look, have you ever done anything like this before? And they went, no. I said, do you fancy coming on? Look, we're 2 guys. We have a beer and we chat Arsenal. We're not trying to be famous or anything like that. And they came along and they went, yeah, we'll give it a go. And we recorded them rather than going live. We done one live one and it didn't really work. But we recorded them rather than going live because we were more comfortable that way. And it was just fascinating. And once you sat there and once Trev got warmed up, that was it. It's just half Steve. There was just it's just fascinating to hear and see the information they came out with. We started in 1886. The club and the podcast. The first section was done 1886.
I think you meant your podcast began in 1886. I was like, my God, you're older than I thought.
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah, that's not just great. That's mold.
Can I actually interrupt you for a second? Because again, I want to blow some more smoke at you, because before you start getting into how the podcast was created and all that, I want to say something, which is that there are a lot of Arsenal podcasts out there, and we know. And I mentioned this earlier. We know who the most watched and listened to ones are, and they deserve every bit of their fame and their followers. They put out consistent, reliable, entertaining, well produced stuff, and people identify with the folks that run them, and they want to hear more from them. So I get that, 200% deserved. But sometimes, in the 489,291 amateur podcasts out there that people are kind of doing for fun or for haphazardly whenever they feel like it or something like that. There are podcasts that are very unique, have very different type of shows, fresh ideas, different approaches. And, I've wanted for a long time to commend you for being one of those criminally underviewed podcasts. And I know you don't care about the number of views. We say that too, but our egos hurt when we go to, when we have a podcast that only 51 people watch. Fortunately, those days aren't as common anymore. But I just, I want to tell you that you don't fret over not having tens of thousands of views or tens of thousands of views, but you just keep doing it for the fun of it, for the love of it, for the love of talking about our club. And you and Trev and your guests that you have on, Trev couldn't be arsed to join us this morning. He got good internet and now he won't use it on me. But this series is this exact sort of thing that should be applauded, watched, digested by tens of thousands, if not more, Gooners around the world, because the problem with the fan base that we have these days is twofold. There's the entitlement issue, which we see on Twitter, which I tend to think is both a younger thing and just a kind of a YouTube generation. I want everything now type of thing. It's a generational thing. And then we've got the ones who just really don't. The club hasn't helped with that. I mean, they gave us 10 incredible years of football, brought in a whole new generation of supporters, and then just absolutely went to shitting the bed after moving us out of our spiritual home, promising everything in the sky, and then just absolutely sucking for 15 years. But the other is people who came aboard the Arsenal train during those successful years, maybe even earlier, like in the late 90s, the Invincible years, even the post-Invincible years, who don't know enough about the history of the club, and they don't factor that into the grand scheme of their perspective and their fanship. So, even those of us who came in earlier than the Wenger years, the George Graham glory years, as I did, often don't really know enough about what happened with the club prior to those years. And so these types of podcasts and really these pieces that you put together of the club prior to to when many people really knew about the club are amazing. So
to be honest, thank you. To be honest, sorry, I went off camera. The wife brought me a cuppa, so she's great. The morning princess. The idea of it. The idea of it came partly from Trev, partly from my daughter. I was going to take the summer off after the year that we had with COVID and with lockdown football and everything else. I had enough, and I was talking to my daughter who had come over from Germany for a few months in the winter, and I said, "Oh, when is your next podcast, Dad?" I said, "I'm not doing one, and we're finished with football. I'm going to take the summer off." So, but you enjoy doing that? It's your hobby, and it's exactly as you said. Why we do it? And she said, "Why don't you do something different? Your favorite game, your favorite player, do something different." And I went, "That's a good idea." And no sooner than we had said that then Trev came up and said, "I've got in touch with Mark and Andy," and the rest went from there. But I am one of those entitlist fans. I didn't start following the club till 1993, so I've really only seen the glory years, and it was learning so much about it. You're on mute, mate.
I said Placky.
You're gonna have to explain these in jokes to people.
No, we don't. There's only 10 people besides us that are watching at this moment. Anyway.
Okay,
I don't have to explain.
Okay, and I think I know most of them anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it was it was just really really enjoyable thing to do, and Mark was just so knowledgeable about the Woolwich years and so on. And I remember there was one particular incident where I thought I'll be clever on this and I'll ask him a question he might know about. And we're talking about Plumstead, the Invicta ground and the Manor ground, and that the way, because Arsenal was founded out of the armories and where the Navy was, it was actually quite an affluent area. Woolwich was back then because it was like, admirals and captains and the like. And it was I've forgotten I do know him, but it's just going to have my brain now. The guy who started it all off with us as captain, he was the captain of the cricket team as well. And we were talking all about that era. And I had read on a piece that I was researching about men went into football for 3 pence, 3D, old pence. Boys went in for 2 old pence, but ladies got in for free. And I thought, football back in 1891, just as we turned professional. I said, how many women would have gone to that? And I asked Mark, I said, Mark, would many women have gone? He said, well, you obviously haven't read my book, Woolwich, the Arsenal Crowd, I think is the name of the book. He said, if you had read that, you would have known that it was 40%, 40% of the population of the crowd were women, because it was a big social event. And that was just really interesting, one of the really early on interesting facts. But of the 10 hours that we've done, there wasn't a minute I didn't not enjoy. And I know preparing for certain eras, like the era after Chapman through to 1953, because we won nothing. That was like, oh Christ, this is going to be hard work. And it was an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. And there was just so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
So
you broke it into 8 different I think it was
8.
actually 6 different segments, if I have it right. No, 7. Plumstead to Highbury, 25 to 34, which was the Chapman era. 35 to 53, which you've just mentioned, 1953 to 1986, which I think would be fascinating. 86 to 96, the George Graham, Mike Feinberg, and Amanda era, and of course the Wenger era, 1996 to 2018, and then 2018 and beyond, which just aired this past week, and I haven't watched it yet, but I would imagine it's just an hour of the four of you all in the fetal position, just whinging and whining in pain and crying and vomiting.
No,
do I have that right?
No, it wasn't. It was harder to do, say, the likes of the 2018 and beyond, because it's more of our opinions rather than fact and history. So to try and keep it as a history type podcast and looking at some of the things we talked about, what you talked about, the entitlement of some fans, the modern social media fan, how Emery was treated, how Emery couldn't manage some of the characters, how the characters became bigger than the game. And then we looked at Arteta and our aspirations and what we deemed as success and progress. So we did keep it as a constructive thing rather than just a rolling around in pain sort of thing. So,
well, and by the way, Steve, if you want to, if you have anything you want to ask and interject, please.
Have you watched many of them, Steve?
Yeah, you don't have to, but you don't need to be a fly on the wall either if you don't want to.
They're all on my watch later. I don't think I've watched much YouTube since I was laying in bed with my stomach newly ripped out. I've got so much to catch up on. This
should be required. This should be like required viewing for. It's just like going to school. I mean, if you're going to be a Gooner, look, the doors are open. There's no what's it called, gatekeeping for Gooners. There should not be. I rail against that all the time, but if you really want to just understand, what the club's about, you got to learn about the history. My son Jake is in the chat right now. It's 2:15 in the morning. He's trying to get up at 7 to talk to Lee Dixon, and then he's got to go to work. I don't want him to be awake right now, but I want him to hear about this and eventually watch this video, because what he knows about Arsenal, he knows from me, he knows from FIFA. Obviously, he can look things up, but I mean the real history, not just the dad history.
It's great hearing it from people like Trev and Mike and the guys Fergus mentioned, and of course they weren't around at the very beginning, but
Trev was.
Yeah, I was going to say we can't underestimate how important it is to have a guy on your podcast who was at Woolwich when the club was founded.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's great to hear it from those type of fans and those type of supporters, because not only have they lived through the majority of what they're talking about, they've been and seen other people and spoke to other people and probably started going to games with people who were around back then. So as I say, it's definitely
the oral history. The oral history just continues through generations, and
exactly.
This has been said in my family, because we have a very deep-seated religious Jewish identity in our family on my mother's side specifically, and there's a lot of concern as the new generations become more scattered and that sort of thing, that the oral history of our family is going to be diluted by the lack of telling stories. And we need to finish this, but I've got my mother from 5 or 6 years ago telling her story on video so that can be played for my grandchildren, and the same. Honestly, not to equate the two, but the same should be the case about Arsenal. So, really, it's a service that you have done this, and I wanted to ask you, and then tell me what you were about to say. How did you know? I mean, how did you come across Andy and Mark, and what their qualifications were as Arsenal historians?
I can't take the credit for that. Old man Trev follows everybody on Twitter. He reads everything. He's got every bit of Arsenal memorabilia you can find. He goes through junk shops and finds anything with a cannon on it, and his house is just an Arsenal shop. How his wife puts up with him, I don't know. And but that's a completely
he posts nice
story.
Stuff about her on Twitter every once in a while, and that buys him more time.
Probably, yeah. But he was reading the ArsenalHistory.com. He's got their books, and all the facts of who was in the lineup and who was sent off and who scored and what minutes they scored on from games back in whenever 1901. And these people have done the alchemy of Arsenal. It's unreal. And he reached out to them on Twitter and said, do you fancy doing it? And the rest literally is history. There's a clip I sent you. I don't know if you've got it lined up or anything like that. One of the episodes in the 1935 to 1953 was during the war period, where football was stopped for quite a while, and there was leagues that were played local.
I'm going to play the video while you talk, but you may have to yourself. So actually, no, it doesn't look like it.
This is footage from the North Bank that was bombed in 1941, I think it was. And I didn't realize that Highbury was bombed. I'm looking at the footage. It's just making my skin tingle right now. But this is footage of Highbury North Bank being bombed by the Germans in 1941. And what you can see about it is that the stands are actually all intact. And what it is heat damage, because the North Bank was used, because it was close to the Highbury Arsenal station, which was used as an air raid shelter. It was also, there was a load of stretchers that were stored in the North Bank, and an incendiary device was dropped. It set alight all those stretchers, and the intense heat buckled the North Bank. Now, I discovered this on Reddit, which was really rare footage from the AP news agency, I believe, and even Mark and Andy hadn't seen it. I showed them live on the podcast, and they were going, "Oh wow, oh Jesus!" And they then came out with the facts, and they talked about the West Stand being an air raid shelter. There was, I think, something with the East Stand was a first aid centre. We didn't play in Highbury at the time because it was a barrage centre and an AKA sort of gun centre as well. And we actually played in White Hart Lane for periods through the war. Sir Matt Busby, Alf Ramsey, I believe, also played for an Arsenal 11, although they didn't go down as official Arsenal players throughout that period, where you'd have guest footballers play for you, like a bit like what's that game they play where you get England versus the rest of the world, and you got Ben Shepherd does it. Soccer Aid, similar sort of concept, I would have thought, Steve.
We call it football aid over here. You don't like that word. No.
Yeah. But it was just fascinating to go through. And when it got really, really interesting is as we get into the 80s, like the 70s and 80s era, you could just see Andy, Mark, and Trev in particular light up, because they were recalling memories of when, like Trev was 45 going to his first game, sort of thing, in 71 or 1970. I think he went to his first game in December 1970, and they're talking about the double winning year, and then we went on to 79, and as we moved along, we came up into the 90s as I started following football, and we started talking about when we won the European Cup, and Kevin Campbell scoring for PSG in the semi-final, and we were able to get the footage from that and stick that up on there as well. I've since been reported by YouTube for copyright.
I mean, I'm hoping that we're not monetizing this video, but I've played a few things already that are probably going to be subject to copyright strike. Hopefully they're not strikes. Instead, they're going to take all your money from monetizing. And I'm like, okay, you can have it because we're not monetizing it. But that footage of Highbury, I mean, as an American, it's just foreign to me, the entire concept, thank God, of my country, my city being like bombed like that. I mean, other than terrorist attacks like in New York and Washington that have happened, other than Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, I mean, that just the concept of living in a country that's literally being bombed by the Germans during World War II is so foreign to me. And to bring it home like that with Highbury, it's staggering.
Yeah, but that's the North Bank. That's where me and you, we've all stood on that North Bank.
And that's thankfully not at that moment. But yeah,
no. No. But it was little gems like that, and about the women attending football, and then seeing things that coming up, and seeing the likes of Kevin scoring the goal. Considering that Kevin had been on our podcast and he's on everybody's podcast, he's really good in that way that he donates his time because of the love of the club, because he's a true fan, and I appreciated that. And he retweeted and he reached out to us and said he enjoyed watching that bit as well.
Yeah.
What do you read?
It's absolutely brilliant. Stands in the house and is loving this discussion so far. And I mean, you had a comment about the issues with residents around Highbury in 1913, kind of having a lot of similarity to how it was in 2006. Tell us a little bit more about that.
My brother's a Highbury resident. My brother is a Man United fan, but he does attend quite a few Arsenal games because of he's with me and stuff like that. And we go out for a few beers and pick up a ticket and go to a game.
That's why I went to the other pub. I didn't want to end up hurting him.
He wasn't with us at that one. Steve Minos, from Gooners LA or LA Gooners. I know that he sorted me out a ticket for Arsenal Chelsea a few years back, and I'm doing this communication with somebody via somebody on I'm in the Eagle and he's somewhere else, and so I meet you outside the Tony Adams by the Tony Adams statue, and I'm standing there and hey Steve, how you doing? He said yeah, oh do us a favor, I got a new flag, do you want to take a photograph? My brother took a photograph. So what are you doing? He said I'm waiting for some guy to pick up a ticket. He said yeah, me too. We carried on talking and everything else. He said I'm gonna have to ring this guy. As he rang, my phone rang.
That's hilarious. I love Steve has already won 2 prizes on this podcast already. He's won 2 prints from Ruth Beck, but it's
lucky man.
Yeah, and he's generous man. But yeah, Steve, I love Steve, and saw him a couple weeks ago, and a couple months before that. We're going to be neighbors next in about a year or two down in Florida. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, so the Highbury resident thing. My brother was a Highbury resident, and when we're building a new stadium, he used to bitch and moan about bloody Arsenal this, and my car sitting outside, and the cement lorries are sitting on Albert Park, and my car's covered in cement dust. Arsenal have to pay to wash my car once a week. They wash my windows once a month, and they just bitch and moan. He then moved from Albert Park to Highbury Hill and continued to bitch and moan, but not as bad as all the rest of the residents. But he was in the group and the WhatsApp groups and everything else, so he used to carry on listening to that. And now he lives in Colnwood, so he's the other side of the old Highbury Stadium, so he not so much. But they were talking about that in 1913 when we moved over to Woolwich. We got that ground ready and open within 6 weeks. You know, from the moment we broke turf to the first game on the 6th of September 1913 was 6 weeks from the day we relocated. And one of the conditions that we took when we relocated to that ground, I know, Mike, I know shit I never knew before. All because of this summer. It's just I come out with that, like, you know,
great, because you're now in a position to tell the story. I mean, you know, you need to, if you're listening to this, you need to watch all 9 hours, 59 minutes, and 54 seconds of the Arsenal history.
I'll stick on an extra 4 seconds just for you. A bit of extra music.
Just append the last episode and just be like, "This is for Mike. This is for Mike," and then just end it. But I don't know why that sounded like the Kit Kat commercial over here, but. Anyway, you got to watch the whole thing. But the fact that you are now able to give us the Cliff Notes version on things that you may not have been able to do just 8 weeks ago, is exciting to me, because I can imagine now going to the same pub that you are intentionally and just having a chat about this, win, lose, or draw, or not even on game day, and just making the Arsenal the topic of conversation.
To finish off on the resident thing, 1913, the condition of us getting in Highbury was that we didn't play on Christmas Day or Easter. So, and okay, that's partly religious of the time and so on, but it was just the awkwardness. And when we built what was the West Stand, it was built right onto the back of people's gardens, and there was a pile of mud pushed back, and then a type of retaining wall. Heavy rains made it fall in on people's on Highbury Hill on their back garden, so that created grief and aggro and everything else as well. But you're talking about rating the history and the stuff like this. My nephew's going to be 18 in September, and he's flying over from the US of A. And he's flying over from Boston.
What day in September?
He's the 6th.
Okay, but my son turns 18 on the 16th, actually. So
okay. Well, he's 10 days older than your son, so he's far more mature, far more knowledgeable.
I don't know. My son's far more mature and knowledgeable than I am. So, and I'm 30
Listen,
years
a fetus is far more mature than you. But he's flying over, and I've managed to get the Norwich game. Sorry, what was that comment the church said?
Church said no games on a Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I did say. That it was partly a religious thing, but also the residents as well said so. There was other things in there as well. We nearly played at Fulham. We nearly merged with Fulham FC. Norris was going to merge us with Fulham FC. We nearly played it, relocated to Battersea. We nearly relocated to Haringey. Could you imagine being a Middlesex team? Jesus, the thought of it. So, but my nephew's coming over, and we're going to catch the Norwich game, and I'm going to do the stadium tour with him when he comes in on the Friday. We'll go to the Norwich game on the Saturday. It's over 21s.
The Legends one or the regular one?
The regular one, probably. I've done the Legends one before, and he's 18. He's not going to know any of the Legends, really, is he?
That doesn't matter. I would die for my son to be able to come over and listen to Perry Groves talk for 45 minutes. That's who I recommend, by the way. Everyone says Charlie George, but you got to go on a Perry Groves Legend tour.
I had Nigel Winterburn. I'll rephrase that. Nigel Winterburn took me on the tour.
Yes, it was a one-on-one situation, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was great. It was really good. I'm doing an impression of Eoin. I'm Eoin.
I'm taking a picture of this and sending it to him, so when he wakes up, All right. So yeah, I've
got a pen. Does that make me Eoin? Sorry, what's that?
What does it even mean to say that we could have merged with Fulham? I mean, explain what that means.
Well, Norris wanted to move us from Woolwich to north of the river to a better location in London with better transport links. Woolwich still to this day has got poor transport links. If they'd got their finger out of their ass and sorted out the new Elizabeth line, then Woolwich will have good connections, because the Woolwich Arsenal and Dial Square have got a tube station there, but it's not active yet. But at that time, the transport links to London were poor. The attendances in 1891, when we went pro and the Invicta ground, were in and around 40,000, but they fell off over the years in the early 1900s to something like 5,000 or 6,000. So in order to get more attendances, they looked at merging with Fulham and making a big London club, and that was Norris's original one. But Fulham were more successful at the time from memory. And Norris wanted us to basically jump up the league. But the league came along and said, no, if you merge, Fulham drop down to your place. So that scuppered that idea. Hence, then we looked at Battersea as a location. We looked at Haringey as a location and settled on Highbury. I don't know the actual reason. I can't recall the actual reason why Highbury was chosen over any of the other locations.
So, what you mentioned that this wasn't a specific area that you talked about a whole lot, but you'd wanted to talk about kind of football violence and how the mixed demographic of the Arsenal kept out the National Front. And I've heard a lot about this. There are a lot of people who know a lot more about the history of Arsenal's, I guess, resistance against firms and that sort of thing. But I am by no means well versed in that. So tell us a little bit about that and how hooliganism and Arsenal either intersected or failed to intersect.
Well, I wasn't in London at the time in the 80s and early 90s. I came to London in 88, but I didn't really get involved in football because of that. I was a young lad and everything else. But I don't know a huge amount about football violence and hooliganism. But what I have read is a lot to do with Denton and the Bear, as he's known. And Denton was a big black man with a huge presence. You had the likes of West Ham and Chelsea, which were very much a white working class sort of demographic in there. And they had a lot of National Front skinheads, Long Doc Martins and stuff like that. And they used to try and come around to the North Bank and storm the North Bank. And the National Front, Trevor talked about it one time, the National Front used to be outside the ground handing out flyers and the likes. And I was just...
And for those who don't know, and I kind of know, but what is the National Front?
The National Front is a bit like it's a Nazi right wing sort of,
like neo-Nazi type of right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
not pleasant people, in my opinion, I think.
No, and nor in mine. But because of the there we go. Denton kept the National Front out, and I would have been really interested to know a little bit more and delve a little bit more about the history of that, because it's quite important how what Denton and the mix of melting pot of a central London club like Arsenal did. And I that would have been an era I probably would have liked to delve a little bit more around. Not because I was involved or enjoyed or took part in. I still like the tribalism of football. And I think that's where the hooliganism probably came from, but just went way too far.
Well, as a person whose first exposure to English football was 1988, you've got, you quickly learn about the Heysel situation with Liverpool, because at that stage that there is no possibility of Arsenal or anybody else in England playing European football. And, you're not just going to know that without trying to learn why. And so hooliganism obviously became a part of it. The suspicions early on that were quickly diffused by everybody but the police about what happened at Hillsborough, and being at Highbury the day that happened at Hillsborough just kind of shook me a little bit. But violence in football is not often associated with the Arsenal, and I think that I don't think that should be glossed over too much, because it doesn't sound like it's just circumstantial. It sounds like there was a cause and a meaning behind that. And even to this day, while I've gone on some European away trips to various cities in the last few years for Champions League and Europa League games before we left Europe, before we Brexited literally from in a footballing way. But you see some bad behavior, but nothing of the likes that you've seen when England as a country travel abroad, or when certain clubs, and I hate to name names, but Liverpool and other fan bases that go abroad and just seem to want to propel that reputation of being proper ard. Arsenal's never really been that club, and am I just selectively feeling that way, or is there something to that?
Yes and no. From what I know, we did have a firm with the Gooners, and we did have a few tear-ups here and there, and we did get involved. There's always a section of football that we, there was always a section that got involved. And Stan's right. Denton was the Pet Shop Boys bodyguard. He died in 1993, I think. No, 2001, I think it was. And he was out in Moscow.
He died well after the Pet Shop Boys' career died.
I think they were out there on some tour, some far Russian tour or something like that. But he was out there working, and he was involved in security and stuff like that. He was a big man.
Well, he had to be to be able to resist those kind of organized hooliganism.
You don't have to be. You just have to be a big man in your head, really, don't you? Because even the smallest men can stand up against the biggest man. It's the bravery just to stand up
until the fists start flying. But yeah,
yeah, that's true. But bigger men fall harder, don't they? Sometimes as well.
I can tell you that firsthand.
Yep.
So you kind of skipping around quite a bit, but that's just when you got 140, 150. Trying to do the math in my head. 135 years of history. You kind of skip around a lot, but George Graham, a very brief in the sense of Arsenal's entire history, and very intense period of time. Again, relating this to my own personal experiences, because it's the only perspective that I really have. When I came, he was the manager. He pulled off an incredible turnaround. It had already started. I'd become aware of what happened in 86 and 87. That all led to what happened in 88, 89. But I was absolutely shocked, because when I came home from England in 1990 after the World Cup, I kind of lost track of Arsenal for many years because of the complete and total lack of coverage of football here in the States. You could get a score in the back page of a newspaper 4 days after the game was played, and that was about all you got. So I was shocked to find out the way that George Graham went out, and I've since talked. We've talked to Alan Smith about it. We've talked to well, Stuart Robson wasn't around when he left, but I mean, we've talked to some people about it, and it's really just kind of a crazy story. But I know you didn't focus so much on the way he went out and more on his achievements. But if you don't know the details, I mean, not only did he end up coaching Spurs, but there was quite a bit of a bung situation, I believe, which is something that not many people talk about over here. But did he do the same thing that Sam Allardyce did, or what? Tell us a little bit more about how that ended.
Without incriminating myself, I'm sure that it continues to happen throughout football, and like money makes the world go round, Mike. And I think the world goes round an awful lot quicker in the world of football and transfers and the like. Harry Redknapp has had stuff insinuated about him. Allardyce, there's been lots of things that have been allegedly said about various characters in the football. And George Graham, what he did and what he's guilty of is he got caught. And brown envelopes. He got caught with brown envelopes. And, isn't there talk about houses being bought and offered for family members for players like Gaza and Shearer and stuff to come to different clubs? How did Fergus feel about the way George Graham left the club? Interesting, his thoughts on the whole bung thing. The players.
Now that sounds perverted, but it's not. I mean, explain to those of us who that isn't a part of our normal parlance what a bung is exactly.
So a bung is a bribe. Basically, he would have taken a cut of money in the so-called brown envelope. So,
are we talking Rolson type of stuff here?
Similar, allegedly.
I mean, a little gerbil once told me that he was into some chicanery here. So
gerbils know everything.
One day I'll tell that story. I'll tell that story. I didn't mean we. I meant I.
Absolutely, gerbils know everything, don't they, Mike? And
gerbils have very good sources.
They do, and they're not ITKs.
No, they're absolutely not.
But how did I feel about George Graham's departure? It was quite. It's a little bit. It was a bit shameful to a certain degree because of the disdain it brought in the press about Arsenal Football Club, and with all the class history and tradition that we talk about. That just put a little bit of stain on his copybook. I didn't like the fact that he went and managed Leeds and subsequently Spurs. But he's the only man who won a trophy for them in how many years? So the irony of that he goes and wins the League Cup with Spurs.
Is he the last? He's not. No, they've won it since him, right?
That was 2008, wasn't it?
Yeah, he left Spurs in 2001, so it wasn't. He wasn't the man.
Sorry. Yeah, was it Ramos that won the League Cup? But yes. But yeah, just the irony of him going to winning a trophy when they're desperate to win a trophy left, right, and centre. I just thought was quite funny. And the bungs, as I said already, I think it happens more and more often than it's been reported. He just, as I said, that he got caught, and that was the silly mistake.
Yeah, and I love what's going on in the chat right now. We've got Stan and Mass Gunner, two old school expats living in North America, I will say, because I think Stan's in Canada, but just absolutely bringing back the old memories. So this is great viewing for them and to participate in it as well. So
I recommend they watch the history podcasts, and they'll love them. And not from my knowledge, not my knowledge at all. I just host and directed. The other three on it just are priceless.
So the best name that I've discovered in this podcast, he was on earlier. I hope you got some sleep and now you're back.
The Danish guy.
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah. The best name was the Danish guy, but for someone asking a question, the name Ask, it just can't be better. I don't know if those are your initials or if that's your name. You got to explain that a little bit and tell us where you're from. But Highbury architect was Claude Waterlow Ferrier in 1913. I guess in Great Depression they spend $100,000 on £100,000 on Highbury. Does his work still there? I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking.
I don't think he wasn't the architect. The architect of Highbury, I can't remember his name, but it wasn't that name. And from memory, the fee we spent to develop Highbury in 1913 was £20,000. So again, episode 1, 1886 to 1913. We'll tell you all about it.
Now, I don't expect anybody to write down this link, but it just go to YouTube and search for Guns and Yellow Ribbons. If you want to watch this, it's like 8 of the last 9 episodes, because I think you did a kind of a midsummer update as well.
Yeah, we did.
They are, I mean, again, it's silly for me to say they're incredible because I have not watched them yet, other than a few brief moments in preparing for this. But I can already tell from what I've watched and from just the nature of what this is, and knowing Fergus and how he puts together a show, it is going to be sensational viewing. And I think they're timeless shows as well. They're one of the types of shows that, you know, whether you watch it now, a year from now, 5 years from now, a month from now, it'll still be golden. Other than maybe the 2018 to current part. But frankly, the pain and anguish that I'm sure comes out of that podcast will probably still be going on for a while. But we got you a new subscriber, Fergus. Stan's gonna subscribe and watch. If you get started now, I'm not recommending this because if you get started now, you could be done by the time and we'll still be on the air when you're done. So yeah, but
are you suggesting that might be more entertaining?
No.
No.
Yeah, no. But should you watch it after us? Yes, absolutely. So
Archibald Leach was the person who designed and the architect of Highbury Stadium. There we go. And according to the infamous, famous, really, really accurate site called Wikipedia, it was 125,000. So I got the 20 right, and I knew there was somebody else's name.
Yeah. So Loki says he has a full set of drawings of Highbury. One of the things I just wanted to point out and plug, because she has been so supportive of the podcast. Now, we've been talking about this the whole time because we've been giving away these amazing prints from Ruth Beck Art. But Ruth Beck is a fantastic artist who sells her prints on Etsy. You can go to ruthbeckart.com/Arsenal. They're all Highbury related, Arsenal related, Arsenal player related, but a ton of stuff from Highbury and N5. And we've been giving these away all morning, evening, night, whatever time it is, where
she
you
does
are.
A lot more as well. I noticed
she does.
Day.
She does non-Arsenal related stuff too. And
yeah,
I mean,
I see a picture she did of Bagel Bake on Brick Lane, 24-hour bagel shop. I see that, and I recognized the art style, and I tweeted whoever it was that put it out, and I asked if it was Ruth Beck, and they were like, "Yeah, it's Ruth Beck." And look, and
I would love to see her achieve a level of notoriety that I mean, in a positive way that she deserves, because it just there's a warmth to her paintings, and it's partly because it brings me back, but also just literally there's a warmth to the style of the painting. There are, and I'm not an art connoisseur by any means, but there's a lot of straight lines, which I like.
It's called primitive art. It's a primitive style. My wife does a lot of painting and stuff like that. But the amazing story with Ruth is I've known Ruth more or less virtually known Ruth since she more or less started. And she started doing the East Stand and a couple of Arsenal things, and I put her up on the forum and stuff. I tried to have a chat with her on a podcast, but I don't think she really wants to do that. But she injured her hand and had an operation on her hand, on this part of her hand. So that would have been what you would paint. And one of the things she'd done to try and get dexterity in her hand again was toying with painting and art, and it came out. And I mentioned to her once as well that because she does local pubs, and she's done the Woodbine for Mehole at the Woodbine. She's done the Gunners pub for the lady who runs the Gunners. And I had mentioned to her, I said, look, there's a pub that really sits well in my family's history, the Canterbury and Canterbury Square. We had my mum's 70th birthday there, a surprise party. Everybody from Ireland came over. It was fantastic. We sadly had my mum's wake there as well. But it just was a significant place. We met for Christmas, like drinks and food and that. And it was a significant place that we went and met. And I said, any chance you could do us a picture? And she'd done an A4 framed, and I sent it to my brother who had organised it all. No, didn't mention or anything, and he's got pride of place on his wall in his lounge. And she sent me a smaller A5 copy as well, which sadly I haven't put up. I've got them. I've got a pile over there sitting, and she sends me like a card every now and then, going, "Thanks very much." And I've got them there, and I keep on meaning to put them in posters and. A bit like Steve Sunderland flag in the background, you know. So
when she found out
Sunderland and Arsenal, just
yeah. Well, we could only see the Sunderland bit, Steve.
When we did our fundraiser last year, Ruth reached out, or I forget who reached out to who, but she just became, you know, just an incredible friend, and I get these care packages with, you know, dozens of her prints. And the thing about it is, you know, I mean, the prints, they're prints. They're not original pieces of artwork. They're amazing, but they're prints. They're not, you know, you could go on Etsy and buy them and it won't break the bank, which is a good promotion, because if you don't win one, it's really kind of affordable to get, and it's a very, very nice piece of art. But she does not ship to the US, nor should she. I mean, the shipping would be 5 times the cost that she's charging for the artwork. So one of the neat things that she'll do is she'll send me a dozen of them or 20 of them. And, you know, whilst not everybody that wins the prints in our auctions is in America, if you are, you're essentially getting something sent to you that you wouldn't really otherwise be able to get. And it tickles me to be able to give them out. You know, every time we do a raffle, we give them out as a prize along with other things that we're giving them out, and people love them. My son has asked me for one, and you know, that took me by surprise, because he's, you know, I didn't really think he'd be too into like artwork and stuff, but he likes it because it's Arsenal related. So thank you again, Ruth. I really appreciate that, and we've got a few more of these to draw before the end of the Podathon. Any other areas because we've got to do a drawing. In fact, our next drawing is for the Ruth Beck art print. It's the penultimate one, I think. Or no, we've got 3 left. And we will do the one, because we're talking about this, we will do the one of the East Stand. And anything else you want to cover as far from the Arsenal history series on Guns and Yellow Ribbons?
No, you know what? I think it was just, as I said at the very start, it was really interesting to get involved. And I know Steve reached out and said, could he get involved at one point? But because we had set it up with the 4, and I didn't want to get any busier than that, I said, Steve, we'll wait off till the new season. We'll get you back on the channel. But it was just really interesting to do, and it was just a pleasure to learn stuff I never knew before, and my head is full of really uninteresting facts. And somebody was talking about in my local pub about COPD, and I was able to tell them exactly what COPD stood for, and they go, "Shit, you do know some boring shit, don't you?" And I
chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Or are you talking about something?
That's the one. Yeah. See, we're all the same. but yeah, it's just it was just good to know stuff like that, and I remember just. The ladies attending was one of the one that just stuck with me. Really, I don't know why, but it stuck with me.
I've just realized that this one has already been drawn for. Actually, I thought that I'm getting them a little misorganized around here, but yeah, we've given away 4 of them already. The first one was Welcome to Highbury. The second one was the gold trophy. The third one, I believe, was Saul Campbell kissing the golden trophy, and the fourth one was the East End. So this is actually the one I want to make it Highbury related because of what we're talking about. But this is the one we're going to be giving away. It is a bird's eye view. Let me see if I can get the light better on this. Bird's eye view of Highbury. Are there seats in there? It looks like there are seats in there, which breaks my heart. Seeing seats in the North Bank, but obviously I understand why. And it's just it's got Avenel Road alongside the East Stand. It's just a beautiful piece. And maybe
they're only They're only
Maybe those aren't
£2.50 the
seats.
postcard.
Maybe those aren't seats. Maybe those are the terraces, because I am still seeing those old style turnstiles that we used to walk through on Evan.
They were there. They were there right till the end, anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, then
yeah.
I don't know why those would be replaced just because the seats were. But either way, this is a really cool one. It even has some of the neighborhood across the street from Highbury. So this is the one we're going to give away.
That road just down to the right of the marble steps. That's where my brother lives.
Okay, that's the road that leads down to the Gooners pub, is it not?
The Bank of Friendship.
The Bank of Friendship, and the next one over is the one that leads down to the Gooners pub. Bank of Friendship, very underrated Arsenal pub, by the way.
Very expensive.
Love it there. Love being out on the back patio there. It's a fantastic place. And you can
have you been there since they've done all that decking area and all the little it's changed so much.
I was there in 2018. That was the last time I was there.
Yeah, it would have been just a yard sort of thing, but now it's all decked.
There were places to sit, and it was a night. I mean,
it's a garden now. Well, a decked garden, raised seating areas, heated areas, power for your laptop.
I believe that was already the case last time I was there.
Yeah,
it was a nice place. It was a nice, warm place to be, and we had a really nice time there. Claude was there that night with tons of Yanks, because it was an Arsenal America road trip. Claude came out and met us there.
I met you. You won't remember. I met you. I met Laurie at the Arsenal Supporters Club. Yeah. And Steve was there.
That was the day that I think I won a pair of Sad Kolasinek's practice worn shorts and promptly draped them over my head for a picture, which I regret doing that for multiple reasons now. But
is that what that mark is?
We've got a comment for you, Steve. It's in the private chat, but I'm going to read it out, and it's from Max, who's joining us in the next hour. Although I might bring him on a couple minutes earlier. Way too many.
Please don't. He's in lockdown in Melbourne, so he's going to be nuts. And has he been on the wine yet?
I believe so. It's 5 p.m. where he is. So are those half and half scarves behind you, or is it just that?
No, right. So I explain this all the time. So I'm an Arsenal fan through and through. I have been since I was a young child. But my mum's side of the family.
There's no but.
There is a but. My mum's side of the family from Sunderland.
It's much smaller than it used to be, though.
My mum's granddad, my great granddad, Thomas Reed, played for Sunderland in the early 19 whatevers. He died down the pits down there, which is why they moved down to London. My nan met my granddad. He was an Arsenal fan. My mum grew up in Hackney. So that's where the London connection is, and that filtered through to me, even though I'm from Watford, but fuck Watford. But I'm an Arsenal fan, but those are Sunderland and Arsenal, because I took my nephews to the Stadium of Light, Sunderland, Arsenal. And then when they came down and played us in the cup, I got Sunderland, Arsenal. That's what my blood is. It's Sunderland, Arsenal. So, I mean, literally Sunderland in my blood, but I'm Arsenal through and through. So if we do end up getting through the second round of the Carabao Cup and Sunderland do the same, and we get Sunderland in the draw, which I'm hoping for, then there will be another Arsenal Sunderland half and half scarf on my wall. But
I think you should bring in Max and give him a right to reply.
He's gonna kick off, but
you wanker. No,
hello boys. How are you?
Cool blimey, mate. Cool blimey. He's looking proper cockney, isn't he?
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, do I have? Hold on, I got to put my uniform on. Oh shit! It fell down the side of my desk.
Hey, Max.
All right, let's pick the winner for this, and then we'll bring you back on.
Yeah.
So Max, hold off for just a second. I want to first say that we are.
He shot his load too early.
We're a bit closer to our goal now. Thank you, Luke, for your donation. We're at 4477 now out of 5,000, 89% of the way there. And we're gonna now pick the winner of the full Highbury Ruth Beck art masterpiece here. Hold on, let me just mark that down. And the winner of the thingy, the Ruth Beck art drawing is Rick Hicks of St. Louis, Missouri, a very good friend of the podcast, actually been on the podcast before. Generous donation from Rick, and Rick has won probably my favorite Ruth Beck art one that we've given away so far, just because it brings back those memories from Highbury. So Rick, the question was asked earlier tonight. We have a group of friends in a WhatsApp chat for the last 8 years called the Ponies. Don't ask, it's a long story. I think this is the first time a pony has won a prize on Gooners versus Cancer. So I probably shouldn't have given that information out without more explanation. But congratulations, Rick. Thank you for your donation, and I can't wait to get this thing over to you. Fergus, it's been a heck of an hour, man. I've loved this because, again, I want to be like a sponge when it comes to learning about Arsenal. And I can now do that for you. I'm sponge worthy. You're sponge worthy.